Welcome to Gaia's Love, a podcast to guide you home into your human journey here on Earth. My name is Vivienne Gerard, and it is my delight to co-create with Gaia and share our messages from Source in this now moment. Here we go. Episode 424. It is Friday morning here in Cincinnati. We have a beautiful sunshiny spring day. I think it was 30 this morning, and it's going to be 60 or 70 this afternoon. So yeah, we are rolling through spring. I am arriving here, still recovering from a cold. I don't even know if recovering is the word. Still moving through the lessons that this infection has been teaching me. And that's really what I would like to share today. I have been clearing my throat, clearing the mucus out of my nose, coughing, chest aching, fever, all the things that you get with a springtime little cold that moves through. But it has lasted longer than normal. And so I thought what we would talk about today is the body and how the body moves energy and what it looks like and how the soul informs that. And this is coming completely from my perspective. So I am not a doctor. I'm not trained in Western medicine. I'm not here to give medical advice. I am simply sharing what I have learned in my journey about how the soul, the body, and the mind play and dance and are constantly teaching and showing us more and more about this journey of being a human. And so you're going to hear some congestion still. I might have to stop to blow my nose. You might hear me cough. If that annoys you, this is not the episode for you. And also, maybe it's exactly the episode for you, because there might be some wisdom and guidance in here as I go along my journey learning too. So here's the musical medicine, the sound healing I would offer. If you are not yet familiar with Trevor Hall, he has an amazing new album out called, I think it's called In and Through the Body. I think it's called In and Through the Body. But there's a song titled Blue Sky Mind. I'm probably going to stumble over my words too. My head is still a little cotton woolly. It's called Blue Sky Mind, and in it the lyrics are in and through the body. It's all about how this is the place, this human structure that we chose as souls, this one right here has the teaching, has the wisdom for me. And to be in my body allows me the greatest soul experience here on Gaia, which seems so contradictory, and I've talked about this many times before. It feels like to be closer to source, to be closer to the soul, we must leave Earth and go out to be somewhere in the universe where that must be the place that God or source sits. And what I keep getting shown, what I keep learning is this physical vessel, this home in which I sit every day, all the time. I can't get away from it. This is my greatest lesson playground. It's this body. And when I'm actively listening to what my body is trying to communicate to me, the most expansive, beautiful, huge shifts happen in the journey. And so can I trust that, and can I keep coming back to that instead of rejecting the body or criticizing it or shaming my body for not being healthy all the time, for moving too slowly? Can I be with what is actually happening in the experience of my human body and listen? And there's a different way to listen when it's active. And that's why when the title landed right before the space, when I was in my meditation, I had all these ideas. And then this phrase just came in. It's like active listening. I'm like, oh, active listening is hard work. It's really hard work, and it's so much easier to just sort of act like we are listening or pretend we are listening or kind of listen. Active listening, that's a challenge, and it requires our full attention, our full presence. And I think in this world, it's challenging to do that. There are so many distractions. The phone, the world, there's so many distractions that to be fully present and actively listening to what's going on within ourselves, also within conversations, within community, it requires such presence and such commitment to the process of active listening. So that's all that is sort of shifting and swirling in me as I arrive. And I love sharing the lessons I'm learning through storytelling, through the stories of what I'm living and experiencing. And so I'm going to go back to when my cold started. I was deep in contemplation this morning, like, what was the origin of this learning that I'm in right now? Where did this cold come from? Because it's easy to say it came from my husband. He had a cold, and so he gave me a cold, and it's a virus, and, viruses move, and we all get them. That's the easy answer. That's passive listening. That's receiving the messages and going, oh, yeah, it must be the virus. It must be the cold. When we're actively listening, as I did this morning, like, when did it begin? When did I first feel a little bit off? And what was happening right before that? Like, what was the thing that my consciousness wants to show me that brought in this body lesson that I'm going through right now? And so for me, I was like, oh, was that? And I'm like, oh, it was the session with Lucie. Oh, that's right. And it was so clear. And as soon as I was asking the right question, not who to blame, but what happened, what event jump-started or activated this body lesson that I'm in right now. When we allow ourselves to listen to the answer and the answer comes, you know it. Your whole body feels it. It's like, oh, yeah, that's right. Ooh, like, it was me in this experience, and that's why that happened. So I thought I would share my session with Lucie to provide an example of how the body then moves the energy and receives the information and continues the active listening, and how the body processes that experience, because this is the home in which I live my experience. And so the body's moving the energy, and in a physical body that has physical expression, snot, coughs, tears, fever, sweat, it has a physical releasing that happens when the energetic experience is moving through. So my session with Lucie, this Lucie, let me tell you, she's something awesome. I found her. Remember last episode I was talking about getting found? I found Lucie in the Gene Keys Prosperity course, and I think I shared the last session we had. That was another massive activation. I don't know, was that a month ago already? Must have been a month ago. But we each gave each other a session, and so she was reading my energy. She has this beautiful way. Lucie's my friend in Amsterdam from the Prosperity course, and I put a link in a previous episode to get a hold of her if you would like to connect with her and have a similar experience, and I'll do that in this one too. In that session before, I sobbed through the whole thing, which I don't usually do a lot of energy sessions that I'm receiving or being read, and I certainly don't usually cry through them. So that was super vulnerable and amazing, and also, wow, did she bring some beautiful clarity to me. And so I unpackaged that for a while. And then this one, she's moving through the Venus sequence in the Gene Keys, which is all about relationships. And so she said, let's look at your Gene Keys and pick whichever one you want, and it'll apply to relationships. We'll go to the first one in the Venus sequence, and it'll apply to relationships, and we'll look at the shadow, and, we'll see what there is in the shadow of your relationship sequence. I'm like, sure, Lucie, that sounds great. Clueless. Except my soul obviously knew that I needed to move through something. And so and then she said, and I'll do some hypnosis work connected to the gene keys, which is her magic. It's the greatest magic. She brings, I mean, so much more than that. There's also like Lucie, the infinite soul playing in this human form that's just cosmically awesome. But she brings together the gene keys and all these modalities she's been learning and practicing, and then hypnosis. And I was like, I'm totally in. That sounds amazing. So then she says, well, let's look at whichever gene key you want. And so what's the gene key that, jumps to you? And I was like, oh, it's this one. And the shadow was addiction. And I was like, oh, addiction. Yeah, I know about addiction. I've been in, relationships where addiction plays out. Like, I got this. I know what addiction's about. And she says, what is addiction like in you? Like, oh, me? Addiction, me? I don't have addictions. What is she talking about? Of course I have addictions. We all have addictions. So I showed up for my session. I feel like very ready to receive, but also very clear that, we could just skip the shadow of addiction and move right to whatever the gift was, which I can't remember the gift now. I think the mastery was silence. The gift was invention. And I said, we'll just go to invention. We don't need to look at addiction. She says in the session, because we're on Zoom, and she's like, well, let's just see. Maybe there is, and we'll just talk about it. And as we start talking about addiction, this huge thing in my relationships comes up, which is, I'm going to try to put words to it, but you know how hard it is to describe something profound. So we were talking about, for me, I guess you would say I'm addicted to evolving, if we're going to be nice about it, right? Like, I'm addicted to constantly growing and evolving. And in my journey of doing that, as I've shared before, sometimes the way that I'm evolving is no longer in alignment then with the relationships that I'm in. And so the relationships need to shift, because who I am becoming and the person who I'm with, friendships or partnerships, who they're becoming just aren't as aligned as they were when the relationship started. And so we need to part ways in order to keep evolving, each one of us individually. And in my experience of that in my life with relationships like intimate love, partner relationships, and also friendships, some of those separations have been devastating. The abruptness of them, or the ending of the intimacy, the ending of the presence of the person next to me in my journey is so traumatic that the belief that I started to pull in is growing, evolving, is actually very painful. Expressing the fullness of myself, being all that I know I'm here to be, creates separation and ending. And the ending of that, I don't know, is it worth it? Is it easier to stay in the vibration I know and the way of expressing myself that they're comfortable with, so that we can stay in relationship because I really love them, because I really want to spend time with them, because I don't want them to disappear from my reality? So is it better to just stay the way that I'm supposed to be in this relationship in order for the relationship to continue, and not evolve and not express and not be the fullest version of myself? And I say this very calmly now, but when you're in it, when I have been in it, it's like losing a limb. It's like having my heart just pulled out of my chest, and there's such unsteadiness. There's such a sense of, who am I going to be if I'm not in relationship with this one that I love? And I've talked about this in connection to my children and the divorce, but it's also played out very much in my deep, intimate, my marriages and my love relationships, and then, some very profound friendships in my life. And when the ending happens and I sit and reflect and I'm in the pain of the ending, knowing much of the time I chose that. I chose the ending because I was feeling suffocated. I was feeling confined. I knew that my soul wanted to do something different, and it couldn't continue doing that in the energy space I was in. Knowing I chose that, there's a responsibility, a self-judgment, a criticism, fear that has festered inside of me that has said, I don't know if it's worth it. I don't know if the pain is worth that. I think maybe it's easier to not go through that again. And so let's limit, let's hold back, let's like stay a little smaller, right? As my throat tightens up and my eyes start to water and my body is like, I remember the pain. I remember what that feels like. Don't go back there. It's a, and I don't want to use the word PTSD because it's not that. It's a cellular locking in of a feeling of trauma, you know? And so do we want to keep choosing to re-traumatize ourselves? It's all subconscious too. I don't know that we're always aware that we're locking in that pain or that we're feeling that intensity and making these inner commitments to ourselves. Like, well, okay, survive that one. Let's not do that again. Let's not go through that. Next time, let's not maybe say the thing that got the person really upset, that pushed us out, that then created this feeling where we have to leave. Like, let's not do that again. Okay. So close your mouth and stay a little smaller and bite your lip or your tongue. Like, don't do that thing. But we don't maybe realize that's what's happening in the body. We feel it. We can feel the locking in, the trauma. And I'm saying this as someone who is very aware of my body, very aware of energy, very aware of my soul's purpose and mission, of the reason why I'm here and the choices that I have made and keep committing to making. Even with all of this, like, I know myself. I know why I'm here. And I can say the words like, it's okay if we're not going to stay in a relationship, I'm going to be okay. And I know that and I feel that. But in my heart, as Lucie pointed out to me so beautifully in our session, in my heart, there's this commitment of, I don't know if I really, really want to risk it. And so I'm not going to push myself. And I'll say it in this relationship I'm in right now. What Lucie reflected back to me is perhaps your fear of, your relationship with your husband ending because you came close before and maybe it'll happen again if you, whatever, right? Get too big or talk too much or show your freak flag too much or go out on the wild side or do too many plant medicine journeys or, energetically go too far out to the edges of consciousness. Like, maybe the relationship will end. And as much as I say I'm okay with that, there's this place in my heart that's like, I don't want that. And so I'm going to hold back. I'm going to be a little smaller and not push the empire I know I'm here to grow, push the energy that I know is just wanting to like burst out of me and blast my sunshine out to the world because I know that's why I'm here. Maybe I won't do all that because it's easier, safer to not risk losing this one that I love. And so Lucie gently reflects this to me. I start crying because I'm like, oh shit. Shit, how does she see me so well? She barely knows me. Like, she found me though, right? And I found her. I knew I needed this really steady, objective, impartial, wise soul who could just look right through to the heart of me and who I could trust to guide me. So she says, maybe we should do some energy work. Maybe we should do a little hypnosis. And I'm like, okay, sob, cry, snot. I'm like, sure. And I'm going to try not cry through this part too. It was amazing. So I do a lot of energy work. And I have my way of doing it. I usually read the energy. And I tell people what I'm, seeing, and then we have a conversation about what I'm seeing and the images and how to adjust the images. And Lucie's way is so beautiful. She's like, I'm just going to take you on a little experience. I'm like, okay. So she does this breathing things that really gets you into your subconscious state. And then she says, we're going to get on a train and we're going to go for a ride. And so I see myself on this train. My whole system is relaxed. Like my body, my mind, my soul are in full presence. And Lucie is my guide. And she says, let's visualize, feel the train. It's like rocking. It's moving you, and you're moving through the earth, and you're down underground, deep underground. And she said, we come to a subway stop, and the train doors open, and this being gets on who is there just for you. This being of love who is here just to be with you. And so the being sits next to you, and you're continuing on the train ride, and the train comes to another stop, and the two of you get out and you start walking. And then you arrive at this place. And she said, what is this place you've arrived at? And I said, oh, it's my friend's woods. We're at a little creek, a little river that's like just so peaceful. And the being who was with me was a friend of mine who committed suicide in December, who I just adored in the physical, and who has been very present with me in my energy work and in my meditation time. And so I said, we're just sitting side by side and looking at the water, and like the light is dancing on the water, and I can feel like all of this peace and all of this gratitude for the moment and for the experience, and full knowing that he's good. He's so good. He's just consciousness and energy, and he can be here with me, and he can be with anyone and all the people who loved him, and he's just like just all this beautiful energy. And so we're just sitting, and she says, what does he want to say to you about you being small and not doing your work and your fear of losing people? And she said, so gently, she's like, what would he say to you? And I was like, oh my God, you can't lose love. You can't lose connection and energy and consciousness. And it just is always expanding and becoming something more. And he's here. You can't lose. Exactly what I said in last week's episode, right? You can't lose anyone. They are just changing form or changing. They're evolving, just like I'm evolving. And that love, that beautiful energy that brought us together, it doesn't end. It's exactly what I said in last week. It's an echo that sends a ripple through time, and in some other way, in some other place, you come back together into connection together. And so how do you lose love? You don't. It just evolves along with our evolution. And of course I'm wiping the tears away, and I'm like, don't let this moment end. Like, I love this soul so much, and I'm so grateful. All the souls I've loved who have transitioned, some by suicide, some by, other choices of exiting, they always find their way back. They always find a way, it's not even the right words. They continue the connection with me in other ways. And my gift, my experience, my joy is to discover the forms, the ways in which they want to communicate with me, to open my listening, to be actively listening to how they're going to communicate, and to be so present that when they do, I can actively engage with their energy and receive what they're trying to teach me in my body, here in this moment, not out in the universe, right here. And so I'm sitting at my desk on a Zoom call with Lucie in Amsterdam, me here, my beautiful friend who has died in the cosmos energetically, like right next to me, and we're sitting in the forest watching the light dance on a river, a creek, and it was profound. It was absolutely beautiful. And so we continued the conversation, and I was just listening. Lucie wasn't giving me the words. I was listening actively to the feeling, the frequency, the energy, the messages that this beautiful soul was bringing to the foreground of my attention, my awareness, clearing the clutter in my mind, the noise, the stuff, and bringing truth and wisdom that would guide me next. And so I was just listening and sharing what I was hearing in the Zoom call out loud so Lucie would know what I was experiencing. I mean, she was feeling it, but I felt like the words were helpful. And then I said, when she asked me, what is he saying about you getting too big and hiding your gifts instead of, because you have a fear of losing relationships? And I said, he's telling me that I'm receiving from you, Lucie, the exact gift that I give those who I do energy work with. So I said, you trusting that you have this beautiful way of bringing awareness through the gene keys and through your hypnosis, you trusting that and offering that allows me to match that energy, to receive from you this incredible lesson, wisdom, gift of energy, because you hold the space and you guide the process, and you reflect to me that I can trust the energy I'm receiving. I can trust the messages I'm getting from my friend. And so you facilitate this feeling in me of peace, of gratitude, of such reverence for the moment and for energy and for my consciousness and for love that continues after death. This profound healing in this moment. Because Lucie trusted that, I was able to receive all of this magic. And so I become more. I become this next level of my evolution. And she facilitated that. And so my friend is saying to me, you are receiving from Lucie exactly what you offer other people. And so why would you not be offering that? Why would you not be sharing that? Like, that's the point. That's why you're here. That's why we're all here. It's to keep evolving. It's to keep learning. It's to walk together side by side on the journey until one of us decides the journey is complete. And then we honor that completion with absolute respect and reverence and love, trusting that we're just going to evolve into some other form of energy and come back and play together again. And so lose the fear. Like, that's what he kept saying to me. He's like, stop being afraid. There's no thing to be afraid of. And you're here to express all of your magic and your beauty and to share it. So I stumbled through sharing that with Lucie as my eyes are closed and I'm sitting by the creek with the water dancing in the light. And then she said, does he have a gift for you? And I said, oh my gosh, like, he's giving me a set of headphones. And we connected through music. Like, that was how I felt his energy was, the music he was playing and sharing, and how he was guiding the flow, the current of energy in a ceremony space I was in. He was the one playing. He was the DJ on the phone, and he was just, it was so beautiful. I was upstairs in the loft, and the rest of the group was downstairs, and I could hear his voice. Normally, I would be the one that would be, facilitating, if that's not even the right word, holding space. I would be the one holding space for the community group that was gathered. And so I'd have my experience, but I'd also be tracking what everyone else was doing and see if I needed to support anybody or do anything. And that day I decided I'm taking the day off because he was there. And I was like, I'm going to go upstairs by myself and have like full on Viv, what is going on in the cosmos and how do I blah, 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 blah. And so that was my choice. I went upstairs, but he had the music. And so I was able to receive this like incredible experience of hearing him say, oh, you guys, you should listen to this song. And everyone would get really quiet. And the lyrics from the song would be incredible. And then you'd hear everyone go, oh, and then, you know, there'd be some new music and people would be talking and there'd be some sharing and then the volume would go up and this crescendo of beautiful sound would move through the whole space and everyone would be like, oh, that's so beautiful. He was a master, like a master. He was so damn good. He was so good. And I was upstairs like, wow, who is this guy? Who is this like keeper of energy that's so good? And so the next day I said, could I have your Spotify playlist, please? Like, could you share that? And so that introduced me to my friend and I expanded my library of music after that. I started paying attention to sound even more than I had before. I started sharing sound in all the work I was doing in ways that I hadn't before. I mean, I've always honored musicians and artists and sound and how it creates and it expands and expresses the current of energy in any space. But he taught me a whole new level of that. And so in the session with Lucie, he hands me a set of headphones and she says, put that gift in your pocket so that anytime you need it, you have it available. I was like, are you kidding? He's going to bring me sound healing anytime that I feel like I'm afraid and I don't want to stretch too big and I'm afraid I might lose someone. Like, he's going to bring me sound? Yes. Yes, if I am actively listening, I will hear exactly the words and the message and the frequency that I need to hear. 100%. And it's already happened. So, what do I get from that experience? After I profoundly, profusely, effusively thank Lucie for showing up and being my guide and finding me and loving me and holding me and walking with me on this journey. That was Tuesday, a week ago. Wednesday, I wake up and I'm like, oh, I'm exhausted, you know. Tuesday afternoon, I was exhausted. And Wednesday, I'm like, so I'm just paying, you know, minimal attention to what's going on, knowing we have to leave on Thursday for this trip out of town. And so I decide to kind of numb out a little bit. And I'm watching all kinds of videos, lots of fear, all this energy coming in. Okay, we're going to have to go just a couple more minutes because I knew I was tight on time today. So my throat chakra, ears, right? I'm receiving in all of this fear and negativity and trying to adjust to this message of you actually are ready to expand and you need to let go of that fear. And started getting kind of foggy a little bit in my head. Thursday, we wake up, we get on the bus, we're headed, you know, up to this big adventure with my husband and 40 high school students and 2 other chaperones. There were 4 of us, 1 chaperone per 10 students. Not feeling so good, getting some sniffly. My husband's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Did I give you my cold? I didn't mean to give you my cold. Now you're going to get sick. I'm like, I don't believe we give each other colds. I believe if we have in our bodies energy that needs to be physically integrated or manifested, our body is going to go through a process and we will receive into it the germs we need to have the experience we need to have the physical expression. You know, it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. If you don't know my beliefs, you can tune into Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life. Excellent information all about how we manifest and process emotion in our physical body. You can tune into my I Am Light Medicine page under I Am Light in my offerings. All kinds of wisdom there. I won't give you the whole long story of that today, but I knew what was happening in my body was because I had just had a massive shift in awareness and consciousness, and my body was going to start releasing all the fear that had been holding me in place. And so I got progressively sicker. I was in a really cold, windy city where it was raining and snowing, and we were walking around outside quite a bit of the time. I was around lots of people, so there were probably germs in lots of public places. As much as I washed my own hands and tried to keep my own germs to myself, that's what happens when we're in a collective experience. We are sharing energy and germs. And I got sicker and sicker, and Sunday we were home. I slept. Monday I just sat on my couch and listened to music and allowed the guidance to shift the energy inside of my throat chakra, my ears, my nose, my throat, my mouth, back part of my neck, my head, right? This whole area here. Whoops, sorry. So I'm still releasing. I had a lot of fear apparently. And here we are. It's Friday. I think I'm almost through, and sharing it is so important. Throat chakra, right? Sharing the story, sharing what I'm moving through, allowing it to be part of how I guide, part of how I have an experience, I have an awareness, and I share that through this podcast space. And that is part of the gift that I bring in my work, is that this is all free. You can access this experience I'm living, this infinite soul in this human finite body where I'm constantly playing and evolving and expressing soul, body, mind, infinite and physical. I share it here, and it's just this pure gift of energy and consciousness and love with absolutely no attachments. You don't have to do anything except actively listen and pay attention to what it brings up in you. And then follow, trust. If there are any matches to something I say, explore that within yourself. What wisdom, what next expansion, what next expression can come from your active listening to another's experience, especially when it comes from such a pure space. So that's what's happening. I have been watching many people around me, ones that I know and just ones that I follow, who seem to be going through a very similar transmutation, evolution, shedding, separating, coming together. Like there have been some really profound life changes that I am seeing in many around me. And what I would offer is be kind to yourself, be gentle with yourself, pay attention, actively listening to what's going on inside of you, because it's happening with purpose, with great purpose. And when we get the lessons earlier, it's so much easier than when we let them sit and get festered and get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and then we have a catastrophe. Actively listening sooner really prevents all of that. It shortens the gap. All right, I need to get ready. We've got the energy gym call starting in a couple minutes, and I wanted to make sure to get this recorded first. So I wish you love, kindness. We are headed towards a full moon, I think, in the next couple of days. A lot of energy with every full moon, but this is the first one of the new lunar cycle, so illumination is going to be happening. Read your astrological forecasts. Go to your astrology wizards and gurus and pay attention. Actively listen to what they're saying. And then look at it within yourself. All right. Next week is Earth Day on Friday, and I have been preparing a really beautiful journey that I'm going to be taking and sharing through Instagram starting next week on Friday and then going for 9 days. So if you don't yet follow me on Instagram, that might be a great place to just kind of see what what's happening and how I'm creatively expressing besides through this podcast. And yeah, I'll be here next week with another episode. So much love. Have a beautiful day. Thank you for tuning into this vibration of pure love. I invite you to join me on Facebook or Instagram in a community I call the Gaia Tribe Reunion, where we show up together to share our soul's gifts, what we came here to Gaia to contribute to humanity. You can learn more at viviennegerard.com. Let's take this message of Gaia's love out into all of our relationships and communities today. So much love from my heart to yours.